in this video, we're going to talk about the 3 basic things that I want you guys to be aware of before you get out into the round pen and start doing Liberty work yourself, okay? These rules do not just apply to Liberty work, okay? They are very important for all aspects of horsemanship, but I really want you guys to kind of have an understanding of them before we move on and before you see it kind of more hands-on, okay? I want you to just be aware of what those things are so when I mention them in my other videos, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is motivation. Motivation is going to be huge when it comes to doing Liberty work with your horses. If your horse is not motivated, they're not going to want to work with you. They're going to see no point in the stuff that you're going to try to teach them, and so they're going to get frustrated, you're going to get frustrated, and it just ends up being a really bad situation. So there are 2 different ways that we can motivate our horses. The first way is using positive reinforcement, and the second way is using negative reinforcement. So let's talk about positive reinforcement first. Positive reinforcement is the use of food to help motivate our horses. Now, one of the negative things that is associated with positive reinforcement is having a horse that is always in your space who bites and nips a lot because all they want is treats, okay? That is a really common issue to have when you are using positive reinforcement, if not used in the right way, okay? I will put out a video for you guys to kind of explain how I teach my horses not to be all up in my space and yet still use positive reinforcement, okay? The other thing you don't want to do when using treats as a motivator, you don't want to end up bribing your horse, okay? Because if you bribe your horse, then you are going to get a horse that only relies on food. You don't want them to rely on the food, you just want to add that in as a little extra reward. Some horses will be more food motivated, okay? I have a miniature horse that really doesn't like to work if there's no food involved. That doesn't mean I'm going to bribe her. That just means that every once in a while I will give her a treat to just kind of show her that you're still doing good, this isn't too boring for you, you can keep working. And that just keeps her mind engaged a little bit more. So then we have negative reinforcement. And when you think negative reinforcement, you immediately think something bad, right? In this case, negative reinforcement doesn't mean anything bad. It doesn't mean we're punishing our horses. Negative reinforcement, the word negative in this case actually means subtracting something or taking something away. So in this case, again, negative reinforcement actually means the release of pressure. We're taking away the pressure. So horses are very intuitive and they feel a lot more energy and pressure than we give them credit for a lot of times. So the release of pressure can be the release of physical pressure. It can also be the release of mental pressure. And I know it all sounds confusing, but I'm going to give you a couple examples so hopefully you can start to understand what I mean by the release of pressure. So for example, if I am in the round pen working with one of my new rescue horses who is very fearful, who doesn't like to be touched, I'm going to go in there and let's say I'm asking for the very first touch. Okay, I'm asking them to come sniff my hand. So I'll walk up to them, hold my hand out, then I'm going to wait for them to initiate more movement. I'm not going to jump at them and make them do something. So I'll hold my hand out. As soon as they reach around and sniff my hands with their nose, I'm going to take a step back. Okay? That step back is the release of pressure. That's not only releasing the pressure between their nose and my hand, it's also relieving mental pressure. It's taking a step back, saying, okay, I'm not going to come any closer to you. I'm going to give you a little bit of a break. I'm going to step out of your space so you can relax, and then we'll try it again. Okay, so that is the release of both physical and mental pressure. Another example of negative reinforcement or the release of pressure would be if I'm teaching my horse the Spanish walk and she's having some difficulties with it. As soon as I see her take that little step forward, that little bit of progression, I'm going to release pressure, which in this case would be the tapping of the whip on her leg, which is the cue for the Spanish walk. Once I release that physical pressure, then I'm going to turn around and I'm going to walk away, and that is the release of mental pressure. Okay, as soon as you turn around and walk away, you're getting out of their space. That gives them a break, that gives them a little bit of time to process, and then they will be of a better mindset to go back and try it again. Okay, and as soon as they put two and two together, as soon as they realize that every time they give a little bit more, every time they try a little bit harder, they get a release, they're going to start working harder for you. And that is going to help you in your training to just fly through stuff so much quicker, because they realize that there's a reward every time they try. So that is negative reinforcement, or the release of pressure. Thing I want you guys to kind of start getting an understanding of is always having a set of cues you use for your horses. And if you're asking for the bow versus a Spanish walk, obviously your cues are going to be different, but there always needs to be a sequence of cues that you use in order to teach your horse something. So let me try to give a little bit of an example so you guys start to understand this. So if I walked up to you and I needed help with something, instead of just asking nicely, if I stood there and stared at you, and then it started screaming at you, that wouldn't get a very good response, right? Versus if I came up to you, I said, hey, I really need some help with something, do you think you could help me? Ask very nicely, very quietly, calmly. If you didn't respond, then maybe I'd be a little bit more animated and get the point across that, hey, I really need help. If you still ignored me, then I'm going to maybe raise my voice, get really animated with my body language, get a little bit frustrated and say, I need help, can you please help me? Okay, that sequence of me asking nicely, then getting a little bit more urgent, and then finally yelling at you because you're not listening, that sequence of cues is going to get so much better a response than if I just start screaming at you. Okay, that's going to make you feel very frazzled, and you're never going to know what to expect around me. It's the same thing with our horses. So you guys will see this a lot in my videos that I'm going to be putting out, but I want to give you a real life example just so that you guys can really start to understand what I'm talking about when I say a sequence of cues. So if I get into the round pen and I want my horse to trot, like I said earlier, I'm not going to just immediately go in there and smack them, because that creates a horse that is just always very antsy and unsure because they don't know what is going to happen when. So when I get in there, I want them to trot. The very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to point with my hands, and then I'm going to give a verbal cue, trot. That's just very nicely asking them to start trotting. If they don't listen to that, then I'm going to step it up just a little bit, get a little bit more firm. I'm going to give another verbal cue, which would be my kiss. Okay, that's getting a little bit more firm, saying, okay, you really need to start thinking about trotting. If they still don't listen to that, then I'm going to get a lot more animated, maybe another kiss, a little bit of energy with my whip to get them trotting, okay? That is a sequence of cues. I'm not immediately going in there and jumping to screaming at them. I'm telling them. Then I'm kind of giving them the warning. If they don't listen to the warning though, then you have to get firm with them. One of the biggest mistakes people make, other than jumping in and immediately screaming at them, is nagging. Okay, you don't want to nag your horse either, because then what happens is if you get in there and trot, 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 your horse becomes desensitized to those cues, and then it will take you smacking them to get them to go, okay? You don't want them to become desensitized to those things. You want them to be responding to that very first step, which would be the point with a hand and the verbal cue, trot. And then the third thing I want to talk about is always making sure that you set up a situation that both your horse and you win, okay? You don't want to set up a situation when you go into the round pen that is going to make your horse fail, okay? That's not what you want to happen at the end of your training session. So always keep it in mind. Be thinking, okay, what can I do in this training session to make it so that both of us win, a win-win situation, okay? If I go into the round pen and I can tell that my horse has a lot of energy, I'm not going to make them do something that requires a lot of mental energy and maybe standing still, because that is setting them up to fail. I want to think, okay, what can I work on that will benefit both of us, that will help us both win in some way. So you basically want to make your idea the horse's idea and vice versa. So for example, if I'm working with a horse that is hard to catch, they're running around thinking that they're winning, right? But I'm not, because I want them to stand still. So what I'm going to do is kind of reverse psychology. I'm going to ask them to trot. So now all of a sudden, trotting, running away, is not their idea, it's my idea, okay? Then I've set that up so that pretty soon, after they get tired, they're not going to want to run anymore, and they're going to want to come in and stand still. That is set up a win-win situation, because they think that they have what they wanted, but ultimately, I have gotten the results that I want. The same thing if you are working, let's say, teaching your horse to lay down. I'm not going to work on getting them to lay down at the beginning of a session when they're still super full of energy. I'm going to wait till the end when they're tired and they're more prone to lay down anyway. That's going to set us both up for a situation that is going to make some big progress and not end in a lot of frustration. So keep that in mind whenever you go out to work with your horses. Always think of, how can I make this so that both of us win in some way, so that it doesn't end in frustration for both of us. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully this has helped you a lot and given you some understanding in what kind of stuff, what the fundamentals are behind the Liberty horsemanship, the Liberty training. Hopefully you guys are super excited to keep learning and to keep growing in your horsemanship. If you have anything specific you have questions about or would like me to make a video on, comment below, because I would love to hear from you guys. I am here for you. I want you guys to just be able to grow and learn as much as possible. So thank you again for watching, and make sure you subscribe so you can see whenever I come out with a new video, which is hopefully very, very soon. So yeah, thank you guys so much. Bye.